Today is April 8th, 2021. My name is Gisela Salinas, and I'm interviewing Abril Hernandez for the University Library Special Collections and Archives at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, hereafter abbreviated UTRGV. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Mrs. Abril, that this interview will be placed in the University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or talk about in the interview, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something you want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. The University Library Special Collections and Archives will archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation you are willing to share. UTRGV University Library will retain copyright or non-exclusive right to the interview and any other materials that you donate to Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I do need to record you consenting to make sure you agree with our interview procedures before we continue. So I'll ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each question. So first question, do you give University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV consent to archive your interview and your materials at the UTRGV University Library?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any other materials you provide?
Yes, I agree.
Do you agree to allow UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives to post the interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant the University Library Special Collections and Archives consent to share your Zoom interview with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voices of a Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes, I agree.
As you recall, we previously filled out a pre-interview form. We use information from the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at the University of Texas at Austin. Before Voces sent it to UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives, we would have stripped out any contact information for yourself or your family members. So that will not be a part of your public file at all. Your public file will only be accessible at the UTRGV University Library. The final 2 questions ask for your consent on what I just described. So do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview and your public file available to researchers at UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives?
Yes, I agree.
And on occasion, UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and Voces receive requests from journalists who wish to contact or interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone numbers or your email with journalists?
Yes, I agree.
So thank you for your consent. Your experiences and stories mean a lot to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives. I look forward to what you say in the interview questions I will now ask. So, Abril, thank you very much for letting me borrow some of your time for this very important Voices of a Pandemic project. As I previously stated, your stories and experiences are valuable to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and the Voices project. Particularly for us at UTRGV Special Collections, we are committed to preserving the stories of Mexican Americans and Latinos from South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, and those who work closely with these populations during this COVID-19 pandemic. Because you are an essential worker who has been risking her life since this pandemic started, because you're also a student whose academic career has been impacted by this pandemic, and because you're a daughter, sister, and friend who has knowledge about how COVID-19 has impacted those people around you, I know you have many meaningful stories and experiences to share with how COVID-19 has impacted these roles you carry out in your life. So before I ask you to share stories about your life in this pandemic, tell us a little bit of who Abril Hernandez is.
I am currently a student at UTRGV, and I was considered, or am considered, an essential worker since I work at Dollar General. Um, and I am very excited to participate in this project.
Okay. So first I'm going to ask you a little bit of questions about COVID-19 in general. So the first question I want to ask you is, when did you first hear about COVID-19? Or how did you learn about it?
It is pretty hard to say specifically, but it was probably on social media. Um, more specifically Facebook.
Mm.
That I think that was mainly the main outlet.
So what was your first reaction to this information about COVID-19?
I would say that at first I didn't take it that seriously because I mean there have been other I guess viruses, not
Mhm.
necessarily pandemics, but in the past years where they've been outbreaks and some people have panicked and but it never really got to anything major like this one. And that's why I guess some of us at the beginning didn't take it that seriously as we should have.
Yeah, that's very true. So at what point did you realize that this pandemic was actually a serious life-altering event? Or right now, do you think it's not serious? So like why or why?
Um, well, at that time, I think it was when the government shut down and we had to go on, what was it, the quarantine. I think that made it very, very real, especially since a lot of people, due to the quarantine, started to panic. That I guess caused panic in all of us at some point.
That's true. And the media really did play an important part in it, like the news and things like that.
Yes.
So over the last few months, what news media, social media, or other sources do you rely on to keep informed about coronavirus? So right now.
I would say social media, but I am careful to choose my sources. I mean, I don't just go to whatever other people in my community post. I mean, I listen to um, news profiles that are active on social media, or yes, and I also in the news, I don't just stick to one. I mean, it is very good to get different points of views from different stations.
Yeah, that is true. Especially if you want to be, if you want to really keep informed, not just be biased about a certain thing.
Yes.
So, can you share with me what you understand about COVID-19 as an infectious disease and any of its variants? Or can you tell me what, up to this day, you still don't understand about the coronavirus?
Well, what I understand is that, let me see, let me gather my thoughts here. Um, okay, so it spreads through the air, and it would be very simple for us to get it if we breathe in it into our nose or our mouth. Um, so which is why we were required to wear the face mask. And well, the closer you are to another person, and if they have it, it's the greatest. You have the greater chance of getting it.
Mhm. Okay. So, can you tell me about what you know about the various vaccines available to the public? And how do you feel about these vaccines?
I have to admit that I really don't know much about the vaccines. I know there have been different reactions toward them from other people. I personally have not gotten vaccinated. It is something I plan to do soon, but I haven't really gotten around to doing it. And I know that is bad of me, but I really haven't.
So, why do you think you don't want to, you haven't like approached that? Like, what do you think about these vaccines?
Um, Maybe it's not really the vaccines. I guess it was that well, my family and I, we've been pretty lucky so far. We haven't really been exposed to it as much as other people have. And I guess that makes some of us feel like we're safe and it is over. But I know that it's wrong to think that way because just because you haven't been exposed to it does not mean it's not real. And which is why I think we will soon get our vaccines. It is something that I think we really should do.
And do your family members hold these same beliefs that you have of COVID-19? Or are there some who take it like more seriously or more lightly?
I think at this point we hold the same beliefs. When it first started, our degree of seriousness was a lot more intense. I remember when I first started and I was working, when I would get home, my mother would tell me to take a shower and take all my clothes off and put them in the washer so that they wouldn't get in contact with my siblings or like anything else around the house that would spread the germs
Mm-hmm.
in case that I was in contact with someone.
Okay. So for these next set of questions, since you're currently a student that is being impacted by COVID-19, as you stated at the beginning, you are a UTRGV student. I would like to focus on your school life and how this pandemic has brought both the best and the worst of you academically, and then afterwards we'll proceed to talk a little bit more about your family and then your job. So, what school were you attending where you first heard of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, as I previously said, I was and am a student at UTRGV.
Okay, so what were some of your initial thoughts as you were learning about how rapidly this virus was spreading and having to think of going to school?
At first, I guess for some of us, we took it lightly. Okay, so then we don't have to go to school. It's something that we would save the drive of having to go some days out of the week. But now, I mean, the perspective has really changed a lot.
Yeah, so how were some of your classes affected at the very start of this COVID-19 pandemic? So how did some of your class structures change? Or yeah, like overall, like how were your classes affected?
If I remember correctly, I think I was in the middle of the winter break when I think. Well, I'm not sure if a winter break, but we were on a break from school. So then I guess that gave the professors some time to really change the structure of the classes and make them completely online. And it was really, well, I personally had classes online, so I was used to it. But I know some people that were only doing classes in the campus, and it was really difficult for them. And I know for some professors that it was their first time, so it was really hard for them to organize themselves. So that kind of affected us. But I think so far I've been able to adjust.
That's good. I think at this point in time, it's all about adjusting. So did you end up dropping any classes since COVID-19 started, or were any classes affected because of COVID-19?
Some were affected. I am in the education program at UTRGV, and one of the things that we do in the classes this semester is go to the schools and basically get what do I call it? I guess experience in the field and just get to really be in the classroom and witness in person like the students and how the teacher really like plays the role. And it is something that we really missed this semester. It's not the same thing to be in a classroom, interacting with the students, and another one to just be watching videos online that were already pre-recorded.
Yeah, that's very true. So since COVID-19 I believe it did start in spring, how did you do at the end of the semester of spring 2020 with your classes?
What was the question again? Sorry.
How did you do with your classes, like at the end of the spring semester? So when the shift happened, how did you do?
Oh, you mean last year, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
something like this year. Last year, okay. When is it? Is so long ago. It really is hard to think about it. But I think I did okay. I mean, at first it took some time to get used to it, especially because I mean, before you could go to the campus, study in the library, and it was a very different environment than just being in your home. And I mean, you're constantly with distractions from your family, from your friends, or just like being in a room where you usually just not do academic work. So it's really hard to not get yourself distracted. And I guess that did affect a little bit, but I try to push through.
So what do you think that would have been different if COVID-19 been around? Like, do you think you would have done better in your schoolwork or?
I would like to hope so, yes.
Okay, so fast forward to now. How are you doing with your classes now that it's been a whole year of remote learning and a full transition from in class to a whole virtual setting? So how do you think, how are you doing right now?
Well, I guess compared to last year that we've had time to adjust, I am and doing much better.
Mhm. So how have your present day classes been impacted by COVID-19? So I know you mentioned about how you don't have the availability to go to other classes for your education program. So apart from that, what other ways has COVID-19 affected your present day classes right now?
The same way, really, because I'm still in that program. So yeah. Now that some of the schools are starting to go back to the campus, I mean, like in high school and middle school. Um, I hope that the situation does change and we do get more of that experience.
Yeah, for sure. So do you feel prepared to tackle on the world with what you have learned remotely?
I do, but I feel that if we hadn't, let me see, I do feel prepared, but I think that if we hadn't gone through the virus, I would have gained um, much more insight.
I see. So you really do believe that like to some extent that the virus did influence your life, um,
Yes.
your academic life. Okay. So how do you find and are still finding remote learning as it compares to like present day, to in-class learning? Like how do you find it? Do you like it? Do you not like it?
Um, I guess I'm used to it, but I think by this point, I don't like it because it is very easy to skip class and just stay in bed and not get up because you're like, oh. Whilst when you were in school, I mean, you were already there and you will have to go to class. Like I guess it makes it a lot easier to, how do I put it? Um, Not commit to school, I guess.
I see what you mean by that. So what do you think are so now that you put that, so what would be some benefits of learning online and what are some drawbacks of learning online?
Well, one of the true benefits is, I mean, um, let's see, what's the word? You save time from having to drive to campus. You save gas, especially myself that I have to drive like 45 minutes to go and come back. So that's something. Um, let's see what else. And whenever there's group projects, I mean, it is a lot easier to just like connect. Well, okay, now that I think about it, no, because sometimes it's hard. I guess like any project, since everybody's working, they have their family. Let's see, a benefit. Well, it is just, I mean, really simple to just get on, but at the same time, it's really hard as well to just not do it. I don't know. It has its benefits, but I can't think of any right now.
It's like too simple that it makes it hard.
Yes, I guess so.
And then like what about the drawbacks like of online learning?
Oh wait, those were my benefits. yeah, sorry. The drawbacks. Um, well, yeah, like I've been saying, I mean, you miss out on the real experience that you would have in a classroom, like talking to your classmates. Online, really, you just get to, I mean, you can talk to your classmates, but you are not able to um, do projects in more detail, especially more hands-on activities, and it's something you really miss out on.
Yeah, it's very true. So I also recently read and experienced some of the things that UTRGV is doing to aid students during this pandemic. So what are some of the things that UTRGV has helped you with as a student?
I think UTRGV has been really helpful. I mean, in the spring, was it last spring? I'm not sure if it was, no, in the summer, I think. Last summer and last fall and this spring, they gave out some tuition. I think it was like between 1,000 to 1,500 dollars to some of the students that I think qualified. I was one of those, and it really did help out um, to pay for that. And they also, what else did they do? They did something else. I think they extended. I can think of what else, but like they really have been helpful. Oh, I think it was during I'm not sure it was the spring semester of 2020, but they gave you the option of changing of labeling your score as passing or not passing, because since a lot of students had been affected by it, I mean, their grades also received an impact. So they gave that option to not affect the students' GPA, I believe, if I remember correctly. So I think I did do that for one of my classes because yeah, and I ended up passing. So it really did help. It seems like something small, but I think to a lot of students, it it was beneficial.
Yeah, it probably meant a lot to many who were like impacted by the whole switch of to virtual learning. So the last question, or like to conclude, what are some for this school section? Um, what are some final thoughts that you have about the pandemic as they relate to your college academic life?
Mm, well, I guess as a whole, it really, especially since college is supposed to be a very social experience. I mean, it really makes you miss that. I guess not just in college, but I mean all the students in high school where they didn't get to go to their proms, and I mean, some of them they really consider that to be very important, or to their own graduation. I mean, they just had to do it online, and I guess for a lot of us, is all those social experiences that you miss out on, um, that we consider to be important. It really, I guess, causes an impact on some of them.
Yeah, it's very true. I hadn't thought about the whole social aspect of that COVID-19 has impacted on students. So that's very good that you brought it up. So now that I've learned a little bit more about you and the impact COVID-19 has had on your academic student life, I would like to transition to a perhaps more personal aspect of this interview. So since you're a person that is currently living in a border town and are experiencing how Latino communities are struggling with this pandemic, I would like to see your perspective on how this pandemic has affected you, your family, or your friends. So the following set of questions will ask about these more personal matters, all in an attempt to get the full scope of how this pandemic has affected you. So to get a little more acquainted with you, how many members are currently living in your household and what are their age ranges?
Um, well, there's my mother and my father. They are between the ages of 40 and 50. There is I have three younger siblings, and they are between 5 and 10 years old. And then there's myself. So 6 in total.
Okay, so out of these members of your household, including yourself, how many of you are insured and how many are uninsured?
That would be 3, and it is my younger siblings.
So putting that into perspective, how there is like some people in your household that are not insured. So what are some of the fears now that you have as they relate to medical expenses and the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, considering, I mean, I work, but I I am not the main provider of income. It would be mostly my father. So it's sometimes a fear that he might get it and that something may happen and to his health, and well, I think that would be a difficult experience to go through. And I know that other families have had to go through that experience. And well, it really um, causes us to, I mean, think about it. Like, what if that were to happen? It's always, I guess, in the back of our minds, even if we don't we don't constantly worry about it. But I mean, the thought is still there.
Yeah, definitely. And like you mentioned, many people are also going through this sort of thing, and it just makes you think like many of the people in our community are not insured. I myself am not insured. So what would happen like if something greater were to happen? So like you said, that is definitely a constant fear. Although many people may not show it, like you said, there's it's still there. So what did you and your family do when you were immediately advised by the government to self quarantine? So was it possible for all you to self quarantine, and why not?
Well, myself, it was not possible since I was considered an essential worker. Since where I work at Dollar General, we sell like the essentials like food, toiletries, I guess some first aids, but mostly the people were going for like the water, the bread, the milk, the eggs. I mean, we had to keep open so that they were able to get all their stuff, especially since they were going into quarantine, and a lot of people were, I guess, they started to hoard. Um, and well, it was essential for us to keep in business. So I was not able to self quarantine. I guess the ones that were just my mother, since she does not hold a job, and my siblings, since they were released from school at the time. And my father, he still had to work, since of course he had to provide for us. Um, the good thing for him was that he didn't have to have constant contact with others, since he is a carpenter, and he just, but there was still some fear there, since when he goes to check out jobs, he has to enter other people's households. And I mean, that is, you're exposed to a different environment, whereas you never know, I mean, who could have had it.
Yeah, that's very true. So as I was informed by the official John Hopkins University webpage, Hidalgo County has 97.3 daily new cases of COVID-19 as of today. So with that in mind, do you or someone you know has had COVID-19? And if so, can you tell us a little bit more about, about what you know about that person's experience?
Like I've said, we've been kind of lucky in that aspect of not knowing anybody in our close vicinity that has gotten the virus. So I really have not had much contact with someone that has gone through that experience.
Okay. So what are some of the fears you have now? Oh, sorry. What are some of the fears you and your family had about COVID-19 when it initially started, and especially since you didn't have the luxury of self quarantine? So what were some of the fears, and what are some of the fears now?
Well, I remember when it started, the first day that the government initiated the mandate for masks, we didn't have any in the store. I remember that the week right before the mandate was instated, um, some some gentleman, he bought all the ones we had in stock, and they were like, I guess 10 or 12 boxes, and I really didn't think much of it when he took them all at that time. But then when the mandate came in, I was like, okay. So then what we did, we really had to improvise. A lot of us did. So we got some handkerchiefs, and some of us put them on just like that. Others put some, what do you call them? Some elastics on the sides, and just tried to keep her face covered. It was really uncomfortable since the fabric was really thick, but I mean, it was something we had to do to keep ourselves safe.
I can only imagine what you felt at that moment of that when that realization hits that, oh, he bought all the masks and now I don't have a mask and I have to be here. So that must have been definitely very tough. So I know you mentioned your dad and how you said that he is currently a carpenter. So when the pandemic initially started, I am talking about self quarantining and all that. So how was his job impacted at that time when the COVID-19 pandemic started?
Um, so at the time, he had a hard time trying to get new jobs, um, since some people, were afraid to let him in into their households. The good thing was that he had a previous job that was, I guess, a pretty big job. So that really helped us through that period of time where he really couldn't get new jobs due to the fear of other people, and well, ourselves included as well.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm glad that he did have something to like for him to do. Um, so what is your mom's current occupation and how was she impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, like I said, my mother, she doesn't hold a job, so she just, um, I mean, she really takes care of the household and of my siblings. Um, and well, during that time, she, well, my siblings were in the house for full time, so she had to take care of them a bit more. Um, and well, she helped. I mean, she took care of all of us. I mean, she would provide the food for us. She really made sure. I guess she was the one that really reminded me, like, you need to be careful out there. Like, you need to use your mask. You need to constantly be washing your hands. When you get here, like, take your clothes off and shower and change. And like, she was, I guess, that constant reminder that you need to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, it's very true, especially since you're out there risking your life. And sometimes we may be a little carefree, but we always need that mother who tells us, like, you need to be careful.
Yeah.
Um, so I understand your siblings go to school. So how were they impacted by this transition of online learning? And how did this online learning affect your family in any way?
Well, for them, I mean, if I get distracted when I'm home, for them it's like 10 times more. I think it's really, their learning has been impacted tremendously. it is so hard for them to just sit still in front of a screen. Really, really hard. I mean, at first they couldn't do it. I mean, every 10 minutes they would come out of the room, because at first we had them actually sitting in a table together, but they couldn't. They were just fighting with each other or just talking with each other, and it was really hard for them to like pay attention to choose separate classes. So we had to separate them, put them in different rooms. But then they began to they come out every 10 minutes, like they go to the fridge, they get, I don't know, something to eat, or they just come out at random when they hear noise and like, oh, what was that? It's like, go back to class, you don't need to be out here. It's really hard for them. I mean, I understand they're I mean, they're easily distracted. They're not used to being in a room with like I mean, it's completely different than being in a classroom, sitting with your classmates, all of you paying attention to your teacher. Um, yeah, it's been hard for them to get adjusted, I think.
Yeah. And then how about your mom? How has it been for her? Because whether some people admit it or not, she kind of became their teacher now. So the teacher, there's only so much a teacher can do. So now it's up to the parents or even you in the household. So how was that for you guys? How did that affect you?
Yes, yes, that reminds me, because I mean, for the teachers, I mean for them, when the pandemic started, they were just sent home. So it took them a little bit longer, especially since not all students have the technological resources. So I remember that at first, the district passed out work packets, and I mean, and then we would send the teacher pictures. I think, yes, we would send the teacher pictures after the students got the work done, or my siblings got the work done. So I mean, it was really my mother and I who had to help them through whenever they had a problem. We couldn't just be contacting the teacher like whenever they needed it. It was a lot. It was different at first, but then the district um, was able to get through, and they just distributed several devices to many students, and that's when they started having the online classes.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten about that point in time where it was everything was unsure. So they started giving out little packages, and once we realized it was more serious, that's when, like you said, they started issuing out iPads and things like that. So, how did the pandemic impact your family traditions, your customs, your holiday celebrations? So, for example, did you celebrate birthdays or Christmas, or did you have Thanksgiving? Was it all different? So, just a little bit about how it impacted your family traditions.
Well, for us, I mean, we would, I mean, usually we would have big gatherings of family and friends. But but for these some of these celebrations, like the birthdays, we were reduced to just a cake here, like just us, the immediate family, and that was pretty much it. I mean, we couldn't be having big parties because I mean, you just didn't know.
Yeah, it's very true. So did you attend any like what were you invited or did you attend to any weddings, graduations, or funerals? And if you did, how did the pandemic make these events different from the pre-pandemic times?
I didn't get to invite. I mean, I didn't get to attend any. I was invited to some before the pandemic started, but when the pandemic hit, many of these events were either postponed, or altogether canceled. Um, I remember one of my neighbors had invited us to a quinceañera, and she she had to cancel at the last minute. And I mean, she what she told us was that she kind of I think she lost money because she had reserved what do you call it? The place, the event center. But I guess you have to. Well, I don't know how that works, but at the point is like they wouldn't give her a refund, and I mean that is that. I mean, a lot of people spend a lot of money in that, and that is a very big loss. But yeah, I
Of
didn't really
course.
get to attend a lot of social events.
Okay, so do you have any more concluding thoughts before we transition to questions about your job?
No, not really.
No, okay. So now that I've learned more about you, your school, and your family, I now want to shift the focus to experiences as an essential worker, because you mentioned you work at Dollar General during this pandemic. So the following series of questions we will aim to capture the full scope of what it feels to be an essential worker during times like these. So do you remember trying to get the different sites? So I already know a little bit more about your school, about your family. I want to know about your job because it sounds very interesting. Like you're an essential worker. Not many people do that. So again, what is your current job occupation, and can you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, before the pandemic, I wouldn't have considered, like, it wouldn't have crossed my mind that I was an essential worker. I mean, when you think essential worker, you think doctors, nurses. But I mean, at this point, you think about it, and it's like, I guess I still have to go to just keep um what to help like the other people. I mean, get their resources they needed. My job, I am an assistant manager at Dollar General, so I do a little bit of everything. Um, I mean, I help with the stocking of the merchandise. I overlook my other coworkers. I spend some times in the registers interacting with customers. Um, well, yeah, I mean, that's it's not such a big place, but a little bit of everything. But I do have constant interaction with customers.
Okay, so how many years have you been working at Dollar General now?
I think no, it's April, so yeah, 3 years.
Wow. So when the COVID-19 pandemic started and you were working at this job, did you at any point in time consider quitting?
No, not really. I mean, I was afraid that I would get it, but I mean, I followed the the procedures that we were supposed to. I mean, I wore my face mask. I constantly wash my hands or use Germex. At first, I think we also used gloves. We don't do that anymore. But I mean, I try to be careful in my interactions. So yeah, I don't think I ever that thought ever crossed my mind of quitting.
So, I'm sorry. So did your choice of staying in this job relate to not having other choice, like any other choice? Was it like, oh, I have to stay on this job because of this? Or was it just like your personal preference? Like what do you think was what made you stay in this job?
Okay, now no, okay, now that you mention it, I think that's another one because I mean a lot of people were unemployed at that point. So if you think about it, if I mean I had a secure job, so if I quit, I mean there was no guarantee that I was gonna get hired somewhere else.
Or hired back? Many people did have that fear of if I quit, my job will be waiting for me afterwards.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the experiences you had to go through when working at this job? I know that for a while we had limited amount of resources, such as masks, gloves, and sanitizer, even toilet paper. So being in the front row, of things, what are some memorable, like apart from the face mask? What other memorable experiences can you share with us? I'm so interested by this.
Well, I think the main thing, apart from the whole toilet paper thing, it was food. And that really centered around bread, water, milk, and eggs. like those were really the main ones that like people were constantly asking for. We let me see. A lot of people at the beginning tried taking a lot of it. So at some point we put a limit. We put a limit of like 1 or 2 items, just to really make sure that try to keep something for everybody. But it was, I mean, that's what panic causes in some people. I mean, but it was mostly that the food really.
So you being an essential worker, did you have like many people believe that you guys have like the first access to like the food, or you have like you can hide some things and you can take it. Like
Mhm.
like did you have like um so just overall did I'm sorry, you froze for a
Yeah,
while.
I get your question.
Okay.
It's okay. Um, um, yes. Let's see. How do I put it? I mean, well, yeah. If I needed something, I mean, I would just like get one item, and like place it, I guess, in the back. And just when I finish my shift, I would buy it because I knew that if I put everything there and like when it had just arrived and I didn't buy anything or like save at least something small for myself, it'd be gone by the time I ended my shift. So I mean, I didn't just like okay take a bunch for myself. I mean, I was also like okay, I'll take one for myself, and I'll leave the rest for everybody else. But I mean, yes, I have to admit, I mean, we did try to, my coworkers and I, we did try to like take care of ourselves.
And I mean, I think it's good that you did. You're out there exposing yourself. Not many people are doing it. So it's good that you thought about yourself as well and not just like other people and trying to provide food for other people. So what were some of the fears, like as you were there, that your family had with you being an essential worker?
Well, it was mainly that I could have somehow gotten it and then not even know it, and then just expose my family to it. It that was, I like at that point that was a constant thought. And not only with my family, but sometimes I mean, one would want to gather with my friends, but I mean that thought that okay, what if I have it, what if I give it to them, it like it just kept us like from not having any like gatherings.
Yeah, more than anything, like rather than thinking about ourselves, we could also think about other people. Like, what if I give it to them, not them give it to us?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what were some of the fears that you had with being an essential worker? So, for example, did you have to deal with customers who did not want to wear their masks in the store?
Yes, and this was especially at the beginning, because I mean there was people that took it seriously, and I mean they had that fear or they had that panic, and there were others who just they, I don't know, they just didn't think it was serious or didn't think that it was real. So there were some encounters with some customers, but I mean it was a good thing that the majority of the community did try to follow the the mandate.
That's good. So did your job offer you any benefits when working during this pandemic? So I'm talking about taking some personal time, some bonuses, some helping you with insurance or medical bills, any, benefits.
Um, the first year in 2020, there weren't any that I remember, I think. But then in the beginning of this year, in January, we did receive a bonus, so that was a help.
Well, it is help definitely, but I don't know, just thinking about it, you're out there exposing yourself and things like that. So, in what ways do you believe you could have been valued better as an essential worker, doing the jobs that many people had no choice of doing?
I'm not sure. Um, I mean, apart from a bonus, um,
You like this bonus was enough, like that they could do?
I guess
I'm sorry, are you muted? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me or no?
Oh, yeah, there it's back.
The internet went, I don't know if it was yours or mine. There. So you can't hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. So back to the question.
Oh, I was saying that I'm not really informed as to what other companies did for their employees, so I guess I can't compare if it was enough or not. Um, I mean, it was something. I guess there must have been some companies that didn't really do much, but I mean, they tried.
Yeah. So what role did your economy play with having to work this essential job?
Oh, what do you mean? Let's see.
So basically, did you take this job because let's say economically you weren't doing as good, or did did that not play like a role at all in you staying in this job?
Um, well, I guess I could use the money. And I already had the job, so yeah. And I mean, there was that uncertainty that if I quit, I wouldn't get another job. So I just stuck through.
So at any point in time, did your parents advise you to not continue working? And what was that one deciding factor that made you want to work during these uncertain COVID-19 times?
No, I don't think that they ever told me that I should quit. I think they knew that as long as you took, or at least tried to take precaution, um, that it would all like work out well in the end, especially since the ones that were most vulnerable to the disease, I mean to the virus, were mostly the elderly. So I guess at some point um, I was okay. Sometimes my mother did have that. Since I have asthma, she thought maybe if I ever got it, um, it might affect me differently. I mean, like worse, but I'm not sure. It was just thought, but they never really told me to quit.
So essentially, like you had the best choice. Like they respected your choices.
Hmm.
So to their job. So what is one thing that you can advise to other Hispanics that have to work essential jobs during this pandemic?
Advice?
Like a piece of advice to those people who are essential workers, just like you.
Well, I mean, just be careful, really. I mean, take your precautions, take your safety measures. Just because, like myself, like just because you haven't been exposed to it, does not mean it's still not out there. Um, it still is, and just I guess I should take my own advice and get vaccinated as soon as possible. But yeah, just be careful.
So now to conclude the interview, I will ask you a series of final questions. So are you satisfied with the local response to COVID-19 in Peñitas?
In my city, I think there have been already some local vaccination locations. I mean, it took some time, but there's some already. So I mean, that's good.
And are you satisfied with the state response to COVID-19 led by the state of Texas? Has the state of Texas aided people? And if it has, are you satisfied with what the state has done? Or the
Has the state of
government?
Texas what?
So have they helped the people in your community? And if the state and the government has, are you satisfied with all the help they've given?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think maybe they could have done more. I mean, they decided to lift the mandate of the what is it? The face covering in public areas, and I mean that just makes some people believe that it's gone, and that is not true. And I don't know. It just makes some people. It gives some people the what's the word? The well, yeah, it just makes them think that it is over and it is okay already, but it is not. And I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean by that. Like it took us, many people of us that are living in Texas, it took us by surprise. Like, it still isn't over. What do you mean? Like we don't have to wear them anymore. So are you satisfied with the current national response to COVID-19 led by President Biden and his administration?
Well, I mean, they have done. I mean, they did the what the stimulus, um, and I guess some families really do needed that, and it would really help stimulate the economy and just get the money flowing to those that need it, businesses and whatnot.
Very true. And if you had the power to respond to COVID-19 with policies, laws, or workplace decisions, what would you do different, if anything?
What would I do different? That is a big one. I'm not sure. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the state and the country as a whole, I mean, they've tried their best to just keep the people safe. They instated policies that
It's
I
okay.
don't
Like,
know. I guess they did what they tried. They tried. They did what they could. I'm not really sure what I would do different. Yeah.
it's okay. So are there any other stories or experiences that you would like to share with me that I have not asked about?
No, not really.
Okay, so thank you very much, Abril, for wanting to participate in this Voices of a Pandemic oral project. So keep in mind that you are contributing to oral tradition history for the future generations that are to come. I appreciate you being comfortable enough to share your stories and experiences with me, and I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. So have a great rest of the night, and goodbye.